Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a safe place for leading with your heart. Hey, thanks for being here. You, Me, Empathy is the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective, a collaborative mental health community designed to empower each of us to grow our capacity for empathy, vulnerability, and emotional wayfinding. Just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. No one is just a silly boy with a feely heart. You can support the show by leaving a review in Apple Podcasts, following us on social media at Yumi Empathy and Feely Human, and joining the Feely Human Collective community at feelyhuman.co. And now your host, Known Wells.
Hello, Feely Humans. Welcome to another episode of You, Me, Empathy. My name is Known Wells, and this is episode 167 on Sacredness in the Bright and in the Dark with Mari Andrew. Mari is a writer, author, seeker of magic. She has a very popular Instagram account. She's wonderful. I really enjoyed this conversation. She has a new book out called My Inner Sky on embracing day, night, and all the times in between. And it's out tomorrow. It's wonderful. I read it before my conversation with Mari, and it's beautiful. It's really about what the title of this episode is, Sacredness in the Bright and the Dark. It's about how all feelings belong and how there's richness in humanity, in all of it, in all of the things we experience, even when it's a struggle, even when it's a pain, and really just an inspiring conversation. Really enjoy my chat with Mari, and I think you will too. I just wanted to say before we get to the episode, hello to the new listeners. A lot of you came over from Kate Flanders' episode that came out last week. Hello. Hi. How are you? Thank you for being here. Very happy to have you here. I really enjoyed that conversation with Kate, and hope to go for a long, adventurous, hobbit-like hike with Kate someday, and maybe you too. Maybe feely hikes are in our future, you guys. Let's do that. Let's make that happen in a post-pandemic world. But anyways, thank you for being here. I'm so grateful. So grateful. Yeah. What else do I want to say? I guess I want to say that you can support me and the show on Patreon, patreon.com/feelyhuman. Just released a replay of our Vulnerability 101 chat. That's available to all Patreon supporters. Check that out, patreon.com/feelyhuman. Follow the show on Instagram at Yumi Empathy and the Feely Human Collective, my collaborative mental health community at Feely Human. And I'd love to feature your writing or do an art collab or just gab with another Feely Human over at feelyhuman.co. I also have a free workshop, and I got some more things I'm working on that hopefully will see the light of day this year in 2021. Anyways, check it out at feelyhuman.co. And I guess the last thing I will say, I always say the last thing, but it might not even be the last thing. I have no plans. Whenever I start recording these, zero plans. Zero prep, zero plans. Can you tell? You probably can. That's okay. I am going on a mini backpacking adventure this weekend, and it feels great. I'm actually recording this earlier in the week. I'm recording it on a Thursday. I usually record them the night before on Sundays, but I'm recording this on a Thursday. I hope your week was great last week. I hope this week serves you and you can find the time for rest and nourishment, and maybe take a moment to, I don't know, look around, look up, look at a tree, sniff a flower, feel your toes in some earth. I don't know. Do something like that. It makes me think of that one scene in Amelie. I mean, if you guys haven't seen Amelie, it's a wonderful movie, but She takes great joy in putting her hand in, I think, a sack of rice, or maybe it's beans, but either way, do something like that. Tactile, feely, stay with it, that feeling, and feel it. That's my gift to you. And this conversation with Mari Andrew is also my gift to you because Mari is wonderful. And I think you'll love her new book, My Inner Sky. Again, it's available starting tomorrow. Pick it up at your local bookshop. The link's in the show notes for this episode at feelyhuman.co. Go to bookshop.org. That's also a great resource for local bookshops. But yeah, My Inner Sky, my chat with Mari Andrew is here for your ear holes and your heart holes. Here right now, episode 167, Sacredness in the Bright and the Dark, with my guest, Mari Andrew. Enjoy.
La 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 la. You, me, empathy. Yeah. La la la.
Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective. On this show, we explore the struggles, the triumphs, the brights and the darks we face as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our mental health, our neuroses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight, so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being feely humans. You, Me, Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, my inner sky is a rich tapestry of Care Bears bouncing on fluffy cumulonimbus marshmallows, because I'm here with writer, artist, seeker of magic, and author of the new book, My Inner Sky. It's Mari Andrew. Hello, Mari.
Hi, Noan. That was such a wonderful introduction. I'm going to join you there.
Yeah, right? I mean, who doesn't want to bounce around and play with some Care Bears on some marshmallows?
Oh, perfect.
Well, it's so happy to have you, Mari. It's we were talking off air that it's been a journey with emails between you and me and your team for the past 2 years. So I'm so great. You technically were on my short list of quote unquote dream guests. So I'm so grateful that you're here.
That's so kind. Wow. I'm so honored. So honored to be there and so honored to be here now. I love a journey that comes to a beautiful end. So here we are at the end of our journey, but in some ways the beginning, I guess.
Yeah, there we go. I love that. Well, Mari, let's kick off the show with an emotional check-in. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling all right today. You know, New York has been really gray the past few weeks, and that's not something that bothers me that much. I'm from Seattle. Doesn't really wear on me like it does to others. But today when the sun came out, I felt like a new person. I felt like I could do anything. It's like, oh, wow, this is making such a difference. So I was just out doing some grocery shopping and music sounded different and people looked a little happier. So I'm kind of on the more hopeful end of things than I was perhaps yesterday.
Nice. I was just editing tomorrow's episode as of this recording this morning. And my guest, Kate Flanders, who wrote the book Adventures in Opting Out, she has a friend who reminds her to ask, instead of like, how's the weather? They ask, how's the weather in your mind?
Ooh.
Which I like, right?
Yeah, that's nice. Although I'm trying lately I'm on this journey to kind of eliminate emotional binaries from my way of thinking. And, a lot of times we associate rain and darkness and clouds with sorrow.
Right.
And I've been trying to see those as happy emotions. Like, how can I associate clouds with joy? Because that's there too. Or when the rain comes down, like, what are the positive associations I can have with that? So I might have to play with that idea a bit before I could honestly answer.
Yeah, I love that, and I think that's such an important space to occupy. It's for me, it's about getting to a space of there's really no right or wrong. Like, we do have these negative connotations about sorrow or sadness or melancholy, but the reality is there's a lot of truth, as you've written about in your new book. There's a lot of truth in the messy and the gray and the stuff that has seemed to be culturally and societally positioned as bad or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So, thank you for sharing how you're feeling. For me, the last couple of days I've been having, I don't know if it's severe allergies, but like lightheadedness and dizziness, and I don't like not feeling myself. It's not a good feeling, and it makes me, as someone who I think gets a lot of value out of like being efficient and like being productive and like doing stuff. I when I'm sick, it is a true sort of like test of my own emotional resilience.
Yes.
Which I know you can relate to.
I can relate to that. Yeah, I can in a lot of ways. Actually, it's interesting you frame it as not feeling yourself, because there is some, quote, negative emotions. I don't really like to put them in those categories, but for ease of understanding, there are emotions like sadness that I actually find quite easy to deal with, because I do feel actually most like myself in a lot of ways when I am in that melancholy space. It's a very comfortable place for me. It's a really creative space. It's not where I want to be all the time, but I know how to navigate it. I actually do feel like in a lot of ways I come back to myself when I'm in a sort of more sad, melancholy area. But like anger for me feels completely, I don't know what to do with it. It doesn't feel like me at all. And that's one that I'm trying to make friends with, because it's when I don't feel like myself, that's when those emotions are really, really difficult to move through. And yeah, I have been seriously sick and I have been mildly sick. And that is a really tough place to occupy, because you don't feel like yourself and you're experiencing these thoughts and feelings that are really unfamiliar, and that's not fun. We want to feel at home in our bodies.
Home in our bodies is a great way to look at it and to put it. As I'm listening to you and reflecting on that statement of like not feeling ourselves, there's even maybe some judgment in my voice, or there's even maybe like some binary in understanding, like, because I feel it may be the fact that we as humans are trained from the get-go to not be, quote unquote, comfortable in the spaces that are the negative or the bad or the wrong or whatever. And I think for me, I want to challenge myself more and more to occupy all of the feeling places, like all of the spaces, because at the end of the day, like that's how we learn about ourselves. That's how we grow and connect with others, right? Like I can take this moment in time where I'm feeling very, quote unquote, unlike myself, and then I think about you and your story and the experience you had with Guillain-Barré syndrome, and it's a connecting force, right? Like when we're vulnerable enough to be in that feeling.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And it's usually those feelings where we are feeling unfamiliar with our own self, our own emotional landscape. Like we're kind of dropped into this tundra of new feelings and thinking, where am I? But once you start going out in that, making discoveries, finding new corners of yourself, that is a really connective space. It feels so lonely, but the irony is it's like, as soon as you start talking about that, then you join this community of people who have been in that exact same place, which is, that can be a beautiful experience.
Yeah. It's like you're building new pathways to connection that you hadn't seen before. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I read your book, your new book, My Inner Sky. It's beautiful and lovely. And, the overall message of it, I just cherish and try to live sort of my life this way. And by overall message, I mean, or this is what I took away from it, is we humans are capable of so much. We're resilient. We are these beautiful, magical, rich tapestries of emotion and feeling, and we glean throughout the process, through the seasons of our lives, right? And it's exactly what we're talking about here. It's about like being cognizant and aware of and open-hearted enough to experience it all and not to judge ourselves in the process and not to judge others in the process, and to allow it to be a thing that is nourishing and enriching. And, I don't know, I'm blathering on, but
it's beautiful. That's it.
Yeah. There's no
I
question in there. I just wanted to say it.
I so appreciate you saying all of that and seeing it that way. I've been thinking a lot, since I started writing this 3 years ago, what is this book actually about? And I think I just recently found out, which is that every feeling belongs. I started learning about embodiment last year, sort of a theme that was going through my mind, and listened to a lot of podcasts, read a lot of book about it. And this idea that we are taught to not really inhabit our bodies fully. And I think if I remember this correctly, in America, this tends to happen to girls around age 12. It tends to happen to boys around age 6, when we're told that certain feelings belong and certain ones don't, and certain thoughts belong and certain ones don't. And when you're taught to kind of slice off a certain emotion or a certain thought because it shouldn't belong to you, that's such a traumatic experience. Yeah. Your body is the only thing you will ever own. And to feel like certain things belong there and certain things don't. And, your mind is in your body. So it's all part of it. And your heart is in your body. It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
To feel like, this is the only thing I own. This is my only home I'll ever have. And the fact that I'm feeling things that don't belong here, that's such a bad way to think. That's such a bad thing to teach little kids and to teach adults. And so while writing it, I had a bunch of experiences that I thought, oh, wasn't life supposed to go this way? Or wasn't I supposed to think this about my life? Isn't a funeral always supposed to be really sad? Isn't a wedding always supposed to be really happy? Just these ways that I was starting to grow up and realize, oh, the world isn't the way that I thought it was going to be. And I wanted to make as much space for that as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so beautiful. And I so appreciate that. I know for me, like growing up, it was a lot of, I was very sensitive. I was a feely sort of kid, and in
My
an
favorite
environment that
time.
felt very scary and unsafe. And so um, I had to protect that part of myself and not lead with that part of myself. Like that part of myself I felt, and today I'm 40 years old. Today I value that. It's my superpower. I love it. But, for the longest time, it was this thing that like I felt shame about. I had to repress to survive in a lot of ways. And,
Absolutely.
I feel, I feel we're getting better as a society in that space with kids. But to your point, I think there's a lot of nuance and a lot of complexity to it that we need to unpack and unlearn.
Yes, absolutely. Nuance is definitely the name of the game. And
Yeah.
we don't have a lot of space for it. Social media has been such a beautiful thing in a lot of ways. And I think really helping with this conversation, but it's hard to be really nuanced in a post that people are going to look at for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking a lot about that lately in the way that it's still, even with as far as we've come with all of that, we still have this idea that even the most sensitive among us are supposed to have this certain response to certain experiences and world news and other people and all of that. And so I've been trying to kind of mentally explore, what it looks like to bring a bit more nuance into discussions online, which is hard. It's hard because it's pretty chaotic over there.
It is hard. And I think about social media and, the stuff that you put out is beautiful and is nuanced. I think the key is the mindset with which we consume this stuff. Because I think there's a part of us that is part of the narrative that we tell ourselves, part of the narrative of American culture is we maybe consume a piece of social media from you, Mari, and we want to okay, let's condense this down. Let's make it this one sort of, quotable thing. And the reality is we're trying to your point earlier, we're trying to put this neat box or binary around a thing that's way messier than we give it credit and needs to be messy because, as we've said, the messiness is where we glean and we thrive and we learn and we grow and be present and all that stuff. But we try to put boxes around this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, to be human is to be so complex. I recently read that a human is capable of 34,000 emotions. Wow. And we can experience all of those through our lifetime if we're lucky. And a quick little soundbite isn't really, it's not going to capture too many of those. I think it is so human also for the brain to try to make things easier and to try to look for patterns and to try to look for evidence to support what you already believe, which makes, social media a little tricky. But I so agree. It's not so much what is put out there as it is the intention with which you go into it. And in my own journey with social media and the internet in general, I'm trying to be really intentional when I enter that space, because it is sort of like going into a room where you're going to see so many different types of people. And it's almost like if you enter, like a convention or something. And it's like one of those huge rooms with fluorescent lights and a million booths, and everyone's trying to get your attention and get you to buy something or to feel a certain way or whatever. Yeah. And you have to go in there thinking, this is what I'm here for. This is what I want to focus on. This is what I really want to spend time with. I'm going to spend 10 minutes talking to this person and have a good conversation, and then maybe 1 minute with this person. And I try to do that when I enter into Instagram or Twitter or whatever, and think I am going in with a really specific, boundary around this. But then we are so easily swayed, right? So it's like so many things are wanting our attention, and 5 minutes have gone by and you've gone through a whole You've gone through every single one of those 34,000 emotions you can have, and
Yeah.
and then you feel kind of attacked. So yeah, it is. I think I hope that there's a lot more conversation in the near future about intentionality with the way we consume.
Yeah. No, I hope so too. So, I read an interview you did a couple years ago, and obviously read your book. And you brought up empathy a few times in this process of the last couple of years in writing this book and your experience with Guillain-Barré syndrome. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Barré, Guillain-Barré. It has a little flair.
Guillain-Barré. Ooh, I like.
It's fun.
I mean, yeah, Guillain-Barré. Thank you. When I think of empathy, I've come to a place in my life where it's really this thing that takes practice and skill and like curiosity every day. How is it for you? How is that empathy journey been for you these last couple of years?
It is an ongoing journey. It's totally ongoing. I have not arrived at a destination by any means, but yeah. I will say when I was going through some really, really hard times, especially after getting Guillain-Barré syndrome, which temporarily paralyzed most of my body. And then I spent a few months getting my strength back, which was actually, that part was harder than being paralyzed in a lot of ways because people didn't know what to do with me. I was in between sickness and health, right. Which is a really difficult place to talk from. And people kind of wanted to put me in one bucket or another because it's a lot easier, which feels very isolating. It's very lonely. So during that time, I realized the most empathetic people around me were the ones who could really sit there. And they didn't want to pretend that I was better. And they didn't want to fully put me in the unwell category either. They were just present to what was happening that day. And there's a lot of expectation when you're coming out of illness that you will maybe be more grateful, that you'll be more wise, that you'll have this, like newfound lease on life. None of that was happening to me, and I didn't really know what to do with it. I had a lot of feelings of survivor's guilt. I was irritable all the time. I was still angry over really small things that probably shouldn't matter that much once you've gone through a life-threatening situation. So I had this kind of big mess of feelings, and the people who could just sit there were so valuable to me. Right now, the past month, I started a job as a hospital chaplain. So what I do is go around to different patients' rooms and I just say, how are you doing today? And I'm there for emotional support, spiritual support. But even for me, and I'm a person who thinks about empathy all the time, even for me, it's so hard to just sit with whatever is going on that day. What I want to do is say, are you feeling better? Like, please feel better so that this can be easier for me. But when they're saying like, I am not well, I'm lonely, this is really hard, to just sit there and say, wow, that sounds really hard. Or to say, I'm so sorry this is happening. Or to just sit and ask follow-up questions and not try to give any kind of platitude or hopeful message. That is the hardest thing. So it's like I've been on the receiving end and now I'm putting it into practice. And it's monumentally difficult because we don't want to sit there. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. We would rather, push toward the light at the end of the tunnel. It's hard to sit in the tunnel.
Yeah, we want to paint them as like the heroes, like because they're beating their illness or whatever. That's the American story. That's the I was particularly touched by the chaplain that you experienced, that visited you when you were sick in the hospital, and and listeners, buy the book, because like this is a perfect example of how empathy can be, which is this chaplain came to visit you, and he honored and reflected your own pain, and he said, basically, that sucks, I'm sorry, and shared his own story, right? And was there and reflected back an experience that was not super similar to yours, but it was an experience where you could see that, like, okay, like it just made you feel connected. And like, what a beautiful moment that was. I was really touched by that.
Oh, thank you for remembering that and bringing that up. That was a really beautiful life moment for me. I was in the hospital in Spain, and it was a Catholic priest in the south of Spain. Not someone I would normally probably come across or get to know. And I kind of had this idea when he came in that he'd be a bit more conservative and, may not be able to fully relate to what exactly was going on with me. But all he did was listen. And he said from the get-go, I'm just here to be your friend. I'm just here for emotional support. And I was so grateful that he didn't try to rush anything. He didn't tell me that God was going to heal me. He didn't promise any kind of, bright horizon. He just sat there. Yeah. And I had a couple other friends do that too, and just say, I'm so sorry this is happening. And not try to say anything like, well, you'll be stronger, or you are so strong, or you'll be wiser because of this, or anything like that. Because I thought, all I want to be doing right now is drinking sangria and dancing. Like, I don't want to be wiser. I don't want to be stronger. I didn't ask for that. I just want to be in Spain on vacation. And to have these promises of like, you're going to be a better person or something, it felt like, well, that's not fair. Like, why
it's not. Yeah.
I don't want to have to go through this suffering in order to get like the lollipop at the end. And so I think when people can really sit there and acknowledge there isn't a reason you're going through this, you just are, and I'm here. Like, that's the most profound type of empathy I think that you can offer.
Yeah, agreed. I love that so much. And I'm so grateful you shared that story. It touched me. I think it's very vulnerable of you, Mari, to share the, really, like, there's so much we humans experience that is invisible, right? That is not seen, right? Like you, I think, alluded to it in your book, where you you're in recovery, right? And you quote unquote looked fine, maybe, right, on the outside, but you weren't fine, right? You weren't fine. And it's such a beautiful reminder for us to show up and really be present with people and allow them to be however they want to be, whether it's struggling, whether it's angry, whether it's annoyed by whatever you're experiencing. Because like it's just an opportunity to dig deeper, I think, and go a little bit toward the heart, as opposed to how you present on the surface.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so hard. This is my theme of this past year, was not making assumptions. That was like my mantra. And it's so easy to do that. And I can see why we all do it. It's helpful, it helps us survive in a lot of ways, but we make a lot of assumptions. And I am someone who gets a lot of messages and emails, and sometimes the ones that really upset me or hurt my feelings are because someone made an assumption that wasn't true. And it will really bother me. And then I find myself making an assumption about someone else. And I think, as a writer, it's sort of an interesting imaginative exercise to look at someone I've never seen, even if it's just on the internet, and think, what might they be going through? Or what, I'm making a lot of assumptions about this specific thing that they're saying or that they took a picture of or whatever, but what else might be going on? And not necessarily difficult things, but what might their day be like today?
Yeah.
And to kind of wiggle around in your imagination and think, what else is going on here? That's not only helpful, for a writer, creator, anyone who wants to learn more about humans, but it really deepens your compassion. And there's so little that we know about people who are walking around. You don't know what's going on. I've heard so many people since I moved to New York and before talk about the slow walkers, like, oh, I can't stand slow walkers and know where you're going and whatever. And when I was in recovery from illness, I was a very slow walker, and I have always been a really fast walker. So that was like a bigger identity shift than anything else. It's like, oh my gosh, now I'm one of these people. And I'm sure if I had visited New York, I would have really annoyed people. This was obviously pre-COVID days when there was a lot of hustle and bustle on the streets. And I'm young and healthy looking. But during my recovery, I felt like I had a rubber band tied around my ankles at all times. It was very difficult and unpleasant to walk. And, that's something that people might have been really irritated by, but they wouldn't know like how hard I was struggling. So we can't always go into our full imaginations about what every stranger around us might be going through, but to just take a beat, before we really lash out mentally or emotionally at someone and think, what is the bigger story here? You are just as complex as I am. I find that to be a helpful way to go through life.
Yeah, me too. I love doing that, and I'm not always successful at it. I think sometimes for me, it's just about a simple shift in narrative from this person is walking slow and it's affecting me. How is this person's actions affecting me? To shifting to, I wonder what joy they're getting out of taking the time to smell these flowers as they slowly pass by, right? It's something as it's taking from the insular sort of self, maybe involved perspective to the, what kind of human joy and presence that they're feeling, and what a wonderful place to be that is,
I in my work now at the hospital, my supervisor will constantly say, your patients are your teachers. Your patients are your teachers. And at first that made me kind of uncomfortable as someone who has been a patient and didn't want to be teaching anyone anything. I didn't want anyone to come to me, like I said, for extra wisdom or insight that I didn't want that pressure on top of not feeling well. But what she means is they're teaching you what it is to be a human, just by being with them in any state. It's not like they have to have these, magical pieces of wisdom that you could sew on a throw pillow, but just by being who they are, they're teaching you. And if you can kind of look at people as these teachers of what it's like to be another human, that's certainly a lot more productive than than just getting upset with them.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you're doing that you had this profound experience with a chaplain, and now you're a chaplain. What a beautiful gift.
My gosh, I know. It is. It is sort of a lovely little full circle thing. I actually started thinking about it this past year because I was thinking, I have no work to do this year. All of the work I was going to do has been taken away. And what is another career path that I think would be interesting to explore? And I think a lot of people think once you write a book or once you do something, that you've always wanted to do, then you're kind of set and you just kind of stop having ambition or stop having interest in other things. And
Sure.
I wanted to challenge that a little bit and say, well, I'm young. I've got my life ahead of me. What else might I want to do when I grow up?
I am so curious now. How did did you apply for this job? Like, how did you pitch yourself for this position?
Yeah, it's actually, so it's part of a education. It's sort of like going to school. It's you have to do it. If you want to become a chaplain, you have to work as a chaplain first. So I've heard it described as like wanting to be a cab driver and then having to drive an ambulance by yourself for 6 months. It's
Gotcha.
like they're putting me in the most in the most difficult part of this job that I'm kind of interested in. So I'm working with a supervisor and other people who are exploring this path, and we have to talk about what we're learning, and it's so vulnerable and so hard. And these people are really different from me and have really different approaches, as does my supervisor. And it's like Earth School, master class. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done.
I love that. I mean, I think the aim of humanity, if anything, I think it's to do that. It's to propel ourselves into experiences that are growth, that are change, that are learning, that are challenging and uncomfortable, right?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, that sounds difficult, but yeah, I mean, in these times when things are just so demanding of you, you do really figure out, oh, who am I? I thought I was this way, but I'm actually really this way. And I think a lot of people would be really hesitant to learn that because it's uncomfortable and you don't always like what you find. But I found even finding out these kind of not so great things about me, especially in this past year, which was so hard, so hard, finding out like, oh man, I really am struggling with jealousy of people right now who like their work hasn't been affected, or I'm really envying these people who like can buy a place upstate or whatever. And sitting with that and realizing like, oh man, I don't like this jealous part of myself. I don't like to think of myself as jealous. I will very often say, oh, that's not me. That's not the real me, but it is the real me.
Yeah.
And to embrace that, the shadows and the gifts in myself. If I'm going to think of myself as a writer, I also have to think of myself as a jealous person. Like it's both. And the more that I embrace that in myself, the more that I can embrace it in other people. Obviously, that's like the life lesson.
Yeah. No, I think that's such a profound wisdom. I think that we can all sort of learn a lot from, for sure. One of the I very much related to, there's a sort of, I guess, an ongoing piece in your book about your relationship to your father and the sort of abandonment issues that you had maybe. And, he was estranged when he passed. And I was wondering, hoping you'd be able to talk about that a little bit. 'Cause I know for myself, I am estranged from my father right now, and reading about your experience with your father and that loss really struck a chord, really made me dip back into a place of more sticky compassion toward a man who is deeply flawed, very violent, very angry, and I think the last few years I've been trying to dip more back into that compassion, and your story, your experience with your father reminded me again to dip back there. So anyways, you talk about that experience a little bit?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to share with each other. Although it's so common, I'm finding, and it's not something that's talked about very often.
Mm.
It was really kind of like emotionally interesting to me when my dad died is first the expectation that I would only be like a certain type of sad about it. And that was really the only emotion that I was like allowed to have, which is why all my other feelings really confused and bothered me. Feelings of like really missing him, even though I hadn't talked to him in 6 years, and feelings of panic and this depression, and also like some feelings of relief, and all of these things that I didn't know that I was allowed to feel. I didn't really know how to talk about. And then there was also this question that I got every time I told someone that he died. They would ask, "Were you close?" And sometimes I'd say yes, just to see what happened. And because we were at one point, that was true too. We were close, and then we were not close at all, but still close in this really specific way where I'm sure we thought about each other a lot, probably even more so than people who weren't very close. It's really complicated.
Yeah.
And whenever people would ask, "Were you close?" and I would say, "No, we weren't," it seemed like that kind of let them off the hook from any more, questions or any sort of compassion. Like, "Oh, thank God. Okay, we don't have to talk about that. Like, they weren't close, good." And so I really struggled with where to put my own grief. It's like, we think of grief when I think of grief, I have this very specific image in mind of someone, like throwing themselves on a bed and crying.
Yep.
And grief can also look like going to work and laughing and feeling and having panic attacks like I did, and feeling and really, projecting this relationship on everyone I dated, and not knowing how to deal with friends, and being really jealous of people with great fathers. And it can look like so many different things. And so, it's certainly one of those things in my life that will be a forever, I'll always be dealing with that in some way. And I have to say, he died at this point almost 6 years ago, and our relationship has gotten better. Like, we've actually, your relationship can go on after death and even during estrangement.
Yeah.
And I found that there are times when I feel really close to him now in a way I never did before. And there are also times when I forget about him and I think, "Oh, wow, I'm not really so hung up on that relationship anymore." But it's one of those really convoluted things that I think a lot of people deal with and not a lot of people talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I recently had Rabbi Steve Leader on the podcast, and he wrote this book recently called The Beauty of What Remains. I highly recommend it for you, Mari. It's about his experiences losing his own father, and at the same time, the experience of being there for about 1,000 people, in their last days, in their final days, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's about that myriad grief. It's about what grief can be and how it's different for everyone and what it looks like, and the presentations of what we want it to look like, and the narratives of like that we tell ourselves that we feel it should be this way and it shouldn't be this way. And he told a story of a person who was estranged to their parent, and the mother, I think, mother died, and this person asked Steve, like, basically said, like, "I don't know what to feel. I feel, all these things," or I think he asked, like, "What should I feel?" And Rabbi said, "Relief. I think is a apt, feeling here. It's an important feeling, right? And that's okay, and and I'm so grateful you said that too, that you felt some of that a little bit, because I think it is, death is it's a thing we all share, right?
Mhm.
But it's also this, like, it's become this another box, right? It's become this other thing, like, that we tell ourselves should be this way. And I think the sooner we let go of those shoulds, the sooner we sort of dismantle the boxes, the sooner we dismantle all the stuff that, like, all the apparatus that tells us we need to do things certain ways, like, that's where it's at.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, everybody dies. Everyone's going to die. And we only have like one way that
Everybody poops too, just to be clear.
Just to put that on the record.
Yes.
Yeah, we're all in this together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy that we have such limited vocabulary for this really, really common experience.
Right.
100% of the people are going to die, and we have one way to talk about it. And anything that deviates from that is disrespectful or, uncaring or not correct. And that is not the way it should be.
Yeah. And so much of that is driven by fear and insecurity and a lack of curiosity and an unwillingness to, or I guess a fear of the uncomfortable places, right?
Yes, for sure. For sure. And I think the people who have gone through those that discomfort are kind of obligated now to walk others through it, because there's not a lot of us walking around. So it's such a gift to have people who have been through it and can kind of help us through. I'm so grateful to the people in my life and the books I read and stories I heard that really walked me through that, because that was such a rough time.
Yeah. Well, that is the gift you're giving others now, right? In writing your book. You're passing that forward, right? You're passing that on. Like, that is the gift that we humans can give. I say this again and again on the show, is like, we have these lived experiences, joyful and not joyful, and hard and traumatic or whatever. And we share, and sharing and being vulnerable and being willing to, like, do the work, whatever that looks like for you, is a moment of empathy for others. Like, is a moment of relating and connection and healing for others. Like, that's the gift. So, like, you're giving that in writing your book and putting your heart and soul into My Inner Sky and giving that to others and allowing them to, like, see, like, okay, like, maybe I had a different idea about, like, what this can look like for me, or et cetera, right?
That's so beautiful. Thank you for saying that. I hope so. I hope so. I do think when you go through something rough or just something kind of different or confusing, the way to make meaning from it is to share it with, one person or a lot of people, or however many you can. Because it's incredible that we are all humans who belong here, and yet we feel so alone in our experiences. We feel so alone and think we're the only person who has ever gone through something. We think we invented breakups, or, definitely the first person on earth who has ever gone through this. And as soon as someone shares it, it's just like a full body exhale. Mm-hmm. Like, oh man, I can breathe because this other person went through it.
Yep. It's the best. It's the best. And as your pal Ruthie says, healing is for, what does she say? Healing is possible and healing is for you, right?
Possible for everyone.
Yeah.
Healing is for you. I love that. I think about that like every day, even when I just stub my toe or something. It's for me.
No, I think it's a beautiful thing, because, I for the longest time, I'll just be vulnerable myself, like, felt that it wasn't for me. I felt like, being raised the way I was, I I developed limiting beliefs that told me I deserve pain, you know? And so like my last decade has been trying to like unpack that and unlearn that. And in that like limiting belief space, which is something we all have, is like we do convince ourselves that we don't deserve healing, that we don't deserve love and joy and, you know, all of the enrichment that life can offer, right? You know, so it is an important reminder. It like it could be, you know, it's the Instagram encapsulation. It's a little box, but it's also the deep humanity. It's the nuance and stuff that if we take time and curiosity with it, it can be very hopeful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I find that with a lot of these little Instagram sound bites, they're not profound until they are. Like until the moment you need to hear them, it's like, oh my gosh, has anyone else heard about this? That you can just start where you are? Like amazing. And yeah, like healing is for you. I don't think that would have resonated in many times of my life, but when I heard it at the time I did, all of these limiting beliefs came to the surface. You know, these things like when I was like 26, I thought, well, I guess I'm just never going to find love. You know, I guess I'm just damaged. And, you know, to really, truly believe I can work through this stuff. I can write a different story for myself. That can be very profound when you need to hear it. And I needed to hear it.
Yeah. How has have you been dating? Like, how has that been for you this past year?
I was in a relationship this past year, and that is where I learned about making assumptions. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done is like be truly partnered with someone. You kind of think it's like going to be the end of a, like once you get this relationship, like then, okay, you're set. Like it's all good. And, man, the amount of stories that come up and the, you know, it's like so vulnerable and so brave to like really love someone else. I feel like I learned more this past year living with someone during a pandemic than I've learned from like any travel or any experience.
Wow.
It's like having to really show up for someone at a really difficult time and shown up for was so challenging.
Yeah.
And also really beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been married for almost 11 years, and it is the tapestry. It is the simultaneous joy and struggle that is, you know, it's all of it, right? You know, it's learning, it's teaching, it's humbling, it's frustrating, it's all of those things.
Yeah, so humbling, so humbling. Like you think you know who you are, and then here's this person with like direct access to all of your stories and wounds. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so not as wonderful as I thought I was.
Yeah. It's really a challenge of the narrative you tell yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
My partner, Jessica, calls me out all the time for like, because I have this, I think, narrative that I'm still trying to unpack and maybe challenge, is that like I am just a weirdo, you know. So I've had all these like weird physical like pains and stuff in my life, and I think they're connected to childhood traumas and things, you know, my body, like the way my body operates. And Jessica reminds me that like just of my willingness to like forget about like what came before, you know, a lot, you know, and it, like all of a sudden it's like this brand new thing. And she's like, no, you remember just a month ago, you experienced the same thing at the same time. And it's this, you know, and I'm just like, thank you for that.
Yeah. That's so beautiful to have such a witness to your life.
Yeah. It is lovely. It's nice. It's nice. It's definitely nice. Yeah. So talk to me about My Inner Sky. Like you wrote this book. It's out a week or so from today, or March 2nd, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
How does it feel? Like, how are you feeling about, I mean, I know you wrote, Are We There Yet? You have this new book, the second book. Like, how are you feeling about putting a book out into, well, a pandemic?
Yeah.
Also, having written a book is a beautiful thing and a wonderful accomplishment. How are you feeling?
It feels pretty anticlimactic at this point. I think, my last book, it was not during a pandemic. So I got to have a party and get to go on book tour and all of that. It was my first time interacting with people who, followed me on Instagram and all of that, which was so beautiful. Like to, really face-to-face interact with people.
Yeah.
It was my first time meeting a lot of people I had met through the internet, which was so wonderful. And this time there's not going to be that. It's all going to be virtual. I will say that, we've got siren in the background. So welcome to New York, everyone. I will say I loved writing this book, and I can't predict anything that's going to happen when it comes out. I don't know if it's going to sell one copy or many more, or if people are going to not like it or resonate with it or whatever. None of that's in my control, and it's really kind of none of my business. But I will say I loved writing it. And I think it's the book I always wanted to write, but didn't have the life experience to write. So I can feel really good that no one can take that experience from me. No one can take away how much I loved writing it. Even if it sells like negative copies and people like throw it out the window, they can't take away how much I loved the privilege of getting to sit down and write about these things and go to places I'd never been in myself and put it out there. So that I'm really, really grateful for. I'm just feeling really, really grateful, even if the virtual events are kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, I feel that, and I understand that. And I think it's a beautiful book. I wrote a little Goodreads review that I'm going to read to you right now. I will never get bored of beautiful reminders of the sacredness in the dark and the magic in between, all human and lumpy and heart-achingly stunning. Thanks to Mari for the reminder. So,
no, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. I think we need more books like this. We need more reminders of our humanity, our complex, nuanced humanity, and that's what it is to me.
Thank you so much. That is so kind.
You're welcome. Well, listeners, buy the book, My Inner Sky. This episode's out March 1st. And so Mari's book is out tomorrow. No. Support your local bookstore. Buy it from there. Bookshop.org is a great resource as well. You can also check out Mari's website. Mari, we always wrap up the show talking about our empathy heroes. So the people in our lives, or even just characters from stories we love, empathetic, compassionate, feely people we honor at the end of the show. I'll go first to give you a moment to think about your empathy hero. My empathy hero is someone I've talked about many times. I even talked about her on this very episode. It's Jessica, my wife of almost 11 years. She turned 40 just a couple days ago, and I'll be turning 40 this year. And I mentioned at the top, Mari, that I've been feeling like dizzy and lightheaded, and she continues to be someone who meets me where I'm at. She sees me for who I am, and there's no like better feeling than when someone can see you for who you are and be fully there for you when you're feeling shitty or you're feeling whatever you're feeling. And just she continues to be that mirror for me, and I love her. So Jessica is my empathy hero this week.
Yay, Jessica!
Yay.
Jessica. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
The first person who came to mind is my friend Kim Rhodes. I'm doing a virtual event with her in a few days. She is a friend who I met in the book signing line of my last book.
Oh, wow.
And she now writes for the website Cup of Joe. She's a wonderful writer. And whenever I text her about something that's going on and I'm worried about a little judgment from in general, not from her, but just, something that's a little that I'm a little disappointed about, or that I wish was a different way, or maybe challenges the narrative that I think people have of me. She always responds with something to the effect of course you feel that way, or of course that happened, or here for you no matter what, or that sounds really hard. And I was going through a really tough time last month, and then something kind of good happened, and she sent me flowers when something good happened, which was so nice. I feel like I'm accustomed to receiving a lot of sympathy and extra tender, loving care when things are really hard. But after this season that was so difficult, to get flowers when like one little happy thing happened was just so nice. So thanks, Kim. We love Kim.
Yes, we love Kim. That's beautiful. I mean, it's like she sounds like she's validating your feelings and also making you feel less alone.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
wonderful.
Mood. Yeah.
I love that. Well, Mari, where can the listeners out there connect with you? Obviously, order your book, all of that stuff.
Oh, thanks for asking. You can always find me on Instagram by Mari Andrew. My website is bymariandrew.com. And my book will be available wherever you buy books.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Mari, for being on the show. I'm grateful to have read your book. I'm grateful to be here 2 years later after initially reaching out and connecting. So grateful.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful as well. This was lovely.
Yeah, likewise. And to you listeners, as I always say, I'm here, you're here, we're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring, pale blue dot. We have each other. It's you, me, empathy.